The door of the roadside bar squeaked open as a tiny figure walked in, allowing a ray of dying sunlight to enter that cut through the smoky atmosphere. The laughter paused for just a moment, enough for every pair of rough, tattooed eyes to turn towards her. She could not have been more than 16, maybe 17, wearing a worn leather jacket that was far too large for her body. Her sneakers were dirty, her jeans ripped, and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She stopped, holding the edges of her jacket like armor, as the eyes around her moved from confusion to curiosity and then to laughter. It was not mean at first, more the kind of disbelief that spreads through a crowd when something looks out of place. But then the laughter grew, louder, a few shouts echoing across the room. The Iron Wolves, one of the most feared biker clubs in the county, had never seen anyone like her walk in by herself. A teenage girl standing among rough men who rode powerful machines and lived by rules older than she was. The largest of them, Tank, leaned back and let out a laugh. "What is this? A lost Girl Scout." The room burst again, bottles clinking, boots stomping. But the girl did not move. She stood there, breathing slowly, until the noise began to fade. And that is when they noticed the patch on the back of her jacket. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of silent courage, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Wisdom in Beacon. Your support helps us spread stories that remind the world there is still good left in it. The patch was not ordinary. It was old, its colors worn, but the words were clear. Iron Wolves, founding member. A silence fell over the room. The men who had just been laughing suddenly sat up straight, looking at each other in shock. That patch was not something anyone could simply buy. It belonged to legends, to the original riders who had built the club many decades ago, long before most of these men had even become members. The girl turned slowly, looking into their eyes. Her voice shook, but she did not hide it. "This jacket belonged to my father," she said softly. "Eli Rivers." A wave of silence moved through the room like a cold breeze. That name, Eli Rivers, was planted in the memory of every man sitting there. He had been one of the Iron Wolves' greatest riders, a leader, and a man who never walked away from a fight or from doing what was right. He passed away years ago in an accident on Route 66, saving a family stuck in a burning vehicle. None of them had seen his daughter since the day of his funeral, and now there she stood, in front of them wearing his jacket. Her name was Mara, and she had not come to remember the past. Her mother was seriously ill, the bills were growing, and nobody in town seemed willing to offer any help. "I did not know where else to go," she said quietly. "Mom always said, Dad's brothers would never let us fall." Her words hit like a storm. Around her, the laughter had turned into shame. These men, large, tough, and loud, were suddenly silent, their faces becoming soft as old memories came rushing back. Eli had been one of them, and they had promised to take care of his family. But promises disappear when years go by, and life keeps moving forward. Now his daughter stood before them, carrying both his memory and his patch. Tank, the same man who had laughed the loudest, rose slowly from his seat. His voice broke when he spoke. "Kid, you should not have had to come here alone." He removed his cap, rubbing his hands across his face. Around the room, the bikers exchanged glances, quiet nods that meant something unspoken had already been decided. That night, Mara rode home inside a convoy of roaring engines. The Iron Wolves had come together like the old times, their headlights cutting through the dark roads. They did not just help fix her home, they rebuilt it completely. The next morning, neighbors watched in amazement as a dozen bikers painted walls, repaired fences, and carried groceries inside. For the first time in many years, Mara's mother smiled. But it was not only about repairs. Something deep inside the club had shifted. Mara became a quiet symbol of what they had lost and what they had now recovered. The old loyalty that had been buried under years of pride came rushing back. They began charity rides, delivering food to struggling families, collecting funds for veterans, and visiting children in hospitals. Always wearing their patches with pride, always remembering why they had started. And at every ride, right at the front, was Mara riding her father's old bike, restored by the very same men who once believed they had nothing left worth fighting for. The sight of her, young and determined, carrying her father's name, gave them a new purpose. People in town began calling her the Little Wolf. Months later, during the annual Iron Wolves gathering, Tank handed Mara something wrapped in cloth. Inside was a new patch, specially made. It read, Legacy Rider, and below it, in smaller letters, Daughter of Eli Rivers. As the men watched her sew it right beside her father's original patch, not a single eye stayed dry. She looked up at them and smiled gently. Dad used to say, "The patch does not make you strong. It reminds you who you ride for." The words echoed through the silent hall, and in that moment, every man in that room understood that it was not just leather or thread holding their brotherhood together. It was love, loyalty, and the kind of courage that does not need to be loud to be felt. From that day on, wherever the Iron Wolves rode, people noticed the young girl among them, the one whose jacket told a story louder than any engine. She was not just carrying her father's legacy, she was building her own. If this story touched your heart, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wisdom and Beacon. Every click helps us bring more real stories of love, redemption, and humanity to the world. Before you leave, tell us in the comments, what does loyalty mean to you? Have you ever met someone whose quiet strength inspired you?